How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Vav, Daf 36 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends. Yesterday's recording got all messed up. I need to re-record it later. Somebody. I was in a group with somebody today. He gave me an interesting idea, which I'm going to try probably from now on. We'll see. I'm going to record like the normal, like Babylon Talmud thing. But then I'm like one of my other phones, I'll just like record it, just like with the regular, like just phone recorder. Just that I have another copy of the audio, just in case the audio gets all messed up. I'll just use that other copy, which obviously will be inferior quality, but at least won't be messed up. So we'll see if that's a good, hopefully that'll be like a kind of like a good strategy to be able to prevent me having to re-record episodes, because that's rough. Okay. Where are we? We're on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis, all the way at the bottom line. Amr b'Yirmiyah paim sheshneim bechatos, paim sheshneim be'oshim, paim she'asoicher bechatos v'ashoyel be'oshim, paim she'asoicher be'oshim v'ashoyel bechatos. Wow. Chevy, who can tell me what this is talking about? So first of all, remember, there's the scenario in our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah talks about where Shimon rents his cow to Ruvain. Ruvain then lends it to Levi. The cow then drops dead. So we say that Ruvain swears to Shimon that it dropped dead, and he's going to be potter because he's a socher. Levi, however, is going to have to pay Shimon because he's a borrower. Okay. Now, okay, so we're saying that there could be scenarios, we're going to mention 4 scenarios. There could be scenarios where both Levi, Ruvain and Levi, the Socher and the Shoel, need to offer a Korban Chatas. There will be scenarios where both of them have to offer a Korban Ashim. There will be scenarios where one will have to offer a Chatas and the other will have to offer an Ashim. And these have to do with if they swear falsely. Okay? So, there are 2 kinds of swearing falsely. I imagine that we're probably going to learn more about this in Masechta Shavuos, which is about, I think, 4 Masechtas from now. Right now we're learning Masechta BavaMetzia, then Bava Basra, Sanhedrin, Makis, and then Shavuos, I think. Anyway, so if you push it, I think this is how I understand it. If you push it, swear falsely, so that's a Shavuos bitui. You push it, swear falsely, so you have to bring a Korban Chatas. If you swear falsely in order to avoid paying money, that you're chayiv to pay money, but you swear falsely so that now you don't have to pay money, so then you have to bring a Korban Asham. So we're saying that there are scenarios where sometimes both the Socher and the Shoel would have to bring a Chatas, sometimes they would both have to bring an Asham, sometimes one would bring a Chatas, the other would bring an Asham. So let's see. So starting again from the beginning, and Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis all the way at the bottom. Amr b'Yirmiyah hat gesagt, paim sheshneim bechatos. Sometimes both the Socher and the Shoel need to bring a Korban Chatos. Paim sheshneim be'oshim. There are times when both the Socher and the Shoel, both Ruvain and Levi, need to bring a Korban Asham. Paim she'asocher bechatos ve'ashoyel be'asham. There are times when the Socher, Ruvain, needs to offer a Korban Chatas and Levi would be chayiv a Korban Asham. Paim she'asocher be'asham ve'ashoyel bechatos. And there are times that Ruvain would offer that the Socher would offer an Asham and the Shoel would offer a Chatas. Okay, so what are these 4 scenarios? Kfiras mamin Asham bitus vasayim Chatas. So first of all, like I said a minute ago, if you swear falsely in a way that would save you money, that would get you out of having to pay, so then you're chayiv a Korban Asham. If you simply swear falsely, but there's no implications for you, there's no sort of advantages financially by swearing falsely, so then it will be a korban chatos. So when we say that both the soicher and the shoyel would be chayav a korban chatos because they swear falsely but for no financial gain, kigon, for example, shemesa kedarka, well, the animal died regularly, okay? So it's considered, I think it's considered like a kind of ones. Okay, so in that case, the socher would be potter. I think we're assuming here that a socher is treated like a shomer socher, so it'd be potter for ones. A shoel, however, would be chayav for ones. And what they swear is v'amu ne'ensa, and they say instead of it dropping dead, they swore that it was stolen at gunpoint. Ones. So if that's the case, so the socher would be potter in both cases. He wouldn't have to pay in either case, whether it was mesa kedarka, whether it was ones. And the shoel would have to pay either way, whether it was mesa kedarka or ones. So therefore, they swore falsely, because it was mesa kedarka, but they swore about ones, so they swore falsely. However, it's only a korban chatos, not a korban ashram, because they didn't gain anything by swearing falsely. The socher would have been potter either way, and the shoel is chayiv either way. Socher the bein kach uvein kach mi pater potter bechatos. So the socher who either way, whether it's mesa kedarko, whether it is ones, is potter, so bechatos, he brings a korban chatos. Shoyel the bein kach uvein kach chayuv michayiv bechatos. And oichet the shoyel, who whether it was mesa kedarko, whether it was nensa, would be chayiv, so also korban chatos. Paim sheshneim ba'asham. There are times that both the soicher and the shoyel would be chayiv a korban asham. Kigon, for example, shenigneva, that the animal was stolen. Okay, so now stolen, both the socher as well as the shoel would be chayiv. Right? Because if we assume that a socher is like a shomer socher, so it's chayiv for gneva v'aveda, and obviously the shoel is also going to be chayiv. V'amru, but they swore mesa machmas melacha, that it died in the course of doing its work. Now, an animal that dies in the course of doing his work is the only scenario in which a shoel, a borrower, is potter, because after all, the borrower borrowed it in order to do work with it. So if the borrower borrowed it in order to do work with it, and it died while doing the thing that he was meant to be doing with it, so then he's potter. So in this case, it was in fact stolen, a scenario in which both the socher as well as the shoel would be chayiv, and yet they swear that it was mesa machmas milacha, in which case both would be potter. So, and they're swearing falsely, so therefore they're both chayiv in asham. The tarvayu, kakafre, mamona, both of them are denying financial responsibility. Damichayve, because they would be chayiv for geneva, v'kapater nafshayu, and they're making themselves potter by saying mesa machmas melacha, so therefore they both need to bring a korban asham. Socher b'chatas v'shoel b'asham, the scenario in which a socher would be chayiv a korban chatas and the shoel would be chayiv a korban asham. Kigon, for example, shemesa kedarka, that it died normally. So now a socher would be potter for that, and a shoel would be chayiv. V'amu mesa machmas melacha, but they swear that it died in the course of doing its work. So the socher would have been potter anyways. So therefore it's a korban chatas. The shoel would have been chayiv, but now he's going to make himself potter by swearing that it died machmas melacha, so therefore he's chayiv a korban asham. So socher the bein kach uvein kach mi potter chayiv bechatos. So a socher who would have been potter, whether it was Mesa Kedarko or Mesa Machmas Melacha. So therefore, the Socher offers a korban chata. Shoyel the Michayev b'Mesa Kedarka. A shoyel, however, who would have been chayiv for Mesa Kedarka, but v'ka poter nafshi b'Mesa Machmas Melacha, but is making himself poter because of Mesa Machmas Melacha. Be'osham, he is chayiv a korban osham. Socher b'osham v'shoyel b'chatas. In the scenario in which case a socher would be chayiv a korban osham, and a shoyel would be chayiv a korban chatas. Could go on, for example, shenigneva, for example, it got stolen. So that's a scenario where both the socher and the shoyel would be chayiv. V'amu mesa kedarka, and they swear that it died just regularly. So by mesa kedarka, the socher would be potter, but the shoyel would of course still be chayiv. So socher hu d'mechayiv b'gneva v'aveda v'kapoter nafshe b'mesa kedarka be'osham. So the socher who would be chayiv for gneva v'aveda, but is making himself potter by saying mesa kedarka, so he's chayiv a korban osham. Shoyel devenkach uvenkach chayiv mechayiv. However, the shoyel who either way is going to be chayiv, so b'chatas he just brings a korban chatas. Ma'ikamash malon. Okay. That was a very detailed kind of breakdown of different scenarios. Why did we need that? We already, right, because we're going to learn Masechta Shavuos, apparently at the very end, that right, we're going to learn all these halachas there. So I don't understand. So why is it teaching us something that we're already going to learn in Masechta Shavuos? Like, what's the chiddush? So the afuke mid Reb Ami, to the exclusion of Reb Ami de Omar, who said, Kol shvuah shadayonim mashbiim, also that any shvuah that the judges would make him swear, ein chayav anoleh mishum shvuas bitur, you are not going to be chayav if you swear on your own. Shneimar onefesh kisishava levati b'sfosayim kisishava me'atzma. That Reb Ami learns that by a shvuas bitur. Where am I? Dama kol shvuah shedarim mashbiim also ein chayav anoleh mishum shvuas bitur. Shneimar nefesh kisishava levati b'sfosayim kitishava le'atzma. Oops, my bad. If any shvuah that you need to, right, that Bezdin makes you swear, so if you swear falsely regarding that shvuah, then you're not going to be chayiv a korban chata. So again, the Amar who says kol shvuah shedayonim mashbiim, so any shvuah that the judges make you swear. So if you swear falsely, ein chayiv noleh mishum shvuas bitur, you will not be chayiv to bring a korban chatas for shvuas bitur. Shenemar onefes kisishava levate bisvosayim kitishava me'atzma. That the pasuk implies that when you bring a korban chatas for shvuas bitur, it's when you do it on your own. But if Bezdin compels you to swear and you swear falsely there, so then you'd be potter kamash malan delok Reb Ami. So we're teaching that it's not like Reb Ami, that even when Bezdin is mechayiv you to swear, like in these scenarios, by the theft, so or whatever happened to the animal, so then we're saying that you're going to be chayiv a korban chatas. So unlike Reb Ami, Idmar was stated. Shomer shemasur l'shomer. All right. So if Shimon, gives an animal to Ruvain to, deposits an animal with Ruvain to watch, and then Ruvain gives it to Levi. Okay. So Shimon had deposited his animal with Ruvain and had designated Ruvain as his shomer. Ruvain goes ahead and gives it to Levi. So itma shomer shemasur l'shomer, a custodian who gives what he's watching, the item, to another custodian. Rav Ami, what? Rav Amar Potter, Rav Yechon Amar Chayiv. So Rav says he's Potter. So Rav says he's Potter, meaning he'd be Potter in any scenario that would be Potter in anyways, right? So if Shimon deposits his animal with Reuven, and Reuven's a shomer chinam, so shomer chinam is only chayiv for pshia. He's potter for anything, so he'd be potter for gneva v'aveda. If Reuven then gives it to Levi to watch, Reuven is still only going to be chayiv if some kind of pshia happens to it. But if it drops dead or something, so Reuven's going to be potter just like it'd be potter if it was in his possession. So again, so Idmar Shomer, Shemasur l'Shomer, a custodian who gives the thing to another custodian. Rav Amar Potter, so Rav says Potter, Rabbi Yechon Amar Chayev, Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says, chayiv, you can't do that. And therefore you chayiv even for ones, you're going to be completely chayiv. Right? Meaning Shimon gives the animal to Reuven to watch. Reuven has no business giving it to Levi, and if he gives it to Levi, out of whatever happens to it, Reuven is now going to be chayiv. I don't care what happens to it, he's now chayiv. Now says Abai, this is going to be important because we're going to see Abai explain it one way, and Rava later on is going to explain it a different way, and there's going to be nafkaminas later on in the daf. So, Amar Abai says the time of the Rav. So according to Rav, who says that Shomer Shemos, the Shomer is potter. Lo mibaya Shomer Chinom, Shemos the Shomer Socher. So obviously he would say that if a Shomer Chinom, right? So Reuven's a Shomer Chinom, and then he gives it to Levi, and he's paying Levi. Levi's a Shomer Socher, which is a higher level of guardianship. A Shomer Socher is chayiv for Gnev V'Aveda, whereas a Shomer Chinom is potter. That Reuven is upgrading the custodianship when he gives it to Levi as a Shomer Socher. Even if Reuven was a Shomer Socher and he gives it to Levi as a Shomer Chinam, still, he's downgrading, even though he's downgrading the Shmira from a Shomer Socher to Shomer Chinam, potter, Reuven is still potter. My time I'll come to a Masra and Levendas, because he gave it to a person with intellect, so therefore, so Rav says, look, a Shomer can give an item to another Shomer, and that's just considered fine. Well, the time of Rabbi Yochanan, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that a Shomer cannot give what he's watching to another Shomer, okay, obviously, if Reuven is a Shomer Socher and he gives it to Levi as a Shomer Chinam, where he's downgrading the Shmira, obviously Rabbi Yochanan would say is the halacha there that is not allowed. Even if Reuven is a Shomer Chinam and he upgrades it by giving it to Levi, because Levi is a Shomer Socher, he's paying Levi. So he's upgrading the Shmira, nonetheless, still chayiv. He's not allowed to do that according to Rabbi Yochanan, because, and this is important, Abaye says that the reason for Rabbi Yochanan, who says that one Shomer may not give is what he's watching to another Shomer, is because because Shimon says, look, Reuven, I gave you the thing to watch. I don't want it with somebody else, right? Reuven, I gave you my animal to watch. I don't want my animal with Levi. I gave it to you. I didn't give it to Levi. I don't want you giving it to Levi, and therefore I don't care if Reuven's a Shomer Chinam and Levi's a Shomer Socher. It makes no difference. And Ritzoni Shepikdoni Baracher says Abaye to explain Rabbi Yochanan that what he's saying is that Reuven cannot give it to Levi because Shimon does not want that his deposit should be with somebody else. He wants it only with the custodian. Omar Rav Chizda says, Rav Chizda had the Rav lav befeirush itmar. Now says Rav Chizda that when Rav says that Shomer Shemaser the Shomer is potter, he never actually said it explicitly, according to Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda alleges that Rav never said that explicitly, that he's potter, that Shomer Shemaser the Shomer is potter. Lav befeirush itmar ela michlala. Rather, it was implied incorrectly. So it turns out, according to Rav Chizda, there were gardeners that every day that every day they would, I guess after work, they would deposit their hose by a certain savta, certain grandmother. So like their hoe, they're like tools that they would hoe with. So they would leave their hose with this certain savta. Yom echad afkadinu legabe echad minai. One day they left the hose with one of the gardeners. They didn't bring it to the savta that day. They left it with one of the gardeners. Shama kalabe ilula. and the gardener was at home, and he heard that there was a chasana. Oh God, sorry, Bob. And he heard that there was a chasana, and for whatever reason he wanted to go. So he brought his Gemara. He figured maybe there would be somewhere quiet there that he could learn, and he went. So Shamakala be'ilula nofak ozal afkodinu legabo da'isafta. So he took all the hose because he wasn't going to be home. So he took all the hose and he deposited them by the savta. Ad ozul v'osa, and by the time he came back, ignuv marayu, all of the hose were stolen from the savta. Also l'kami de Rav ufatre, and they came before Rav, and Rav says that this gardener is potter. So here we have so let's go weiter. So mandechaza savar. So somebody who saw this figured mishum shomer shemasu the shomer potter. So somebody who was observing this figured, oh wow, interesting. So this gardener was a shomer for all the hose. He then gave it to the savta. So shomer shemasu the shomer was saying that the gardener is potter. So somebody who was there understood the scenario, the situation to mean that Rav is saying that shomer shemasu the shomer is potter. That shomer shemasu the shomer is potter. Velohi, but that's not true. Shiny awesome that it was different in this case. The choyoma nami inu gufayu kabodai savta avu mafkadei lehu. No, but the thing is, the reason why Rav says that the gardener was potter was because this wasn't actually a scenario of shomer shemasu the shomer, right? The whole, at least according to the way that Abai explains it, right? The whole point is ein ritzoni shepiktoni b'yad acher. I don't want that my deposit should be with somebody else, but clearly every single day they're leaving their hose with this savta. Clearly they don't have a problem with her. So that is why Rav said that in this particular case, the gardener is off the hook because he dafka gave it to the person who they usually give it to every single day. But according to Rav Chizda, it doesn't necessarily mean that Rav would actually hold that shomer shemos the shomer is in fact potter. Yosef Reb Ami v'karmela le'ashmaita. So Reb Ami, who is a student of Reb Yochanan, was saying over the sugya. Now, of course, Reb Yochanan said that shomer shemos the shomer is chayiv, completely chayiv. I don't care what happens, he's going to be chayiv. Abaye explained that it's because of ein ritzoni shepiktoni b'yad acher. So Yosef Rabbi v'ka'amar la la'ashmaita eis v'Rabbi bar Mamel l'Rabbi, but Rabbi bar Mamel asked the kasha to Rabbi from our Mishnah. What did we say in our Mishnah? Our Mishnah said that Shimon rented out his cow to Ruvain. Ruvain then lent it to Levi. So, right, and I guess Socher is considered a shomer, right? We call him the Daled shomer. So I guess Socher is considered a shomer over here. And so it sounds like what we're saying is, it sounds like a scenario of shomer shemasu the shomer. Shimon rented the cow to Ruvain, and Ruvain then went and lent it to Levi. And what happened? The cow dropped dead, and we say that that Ruvain is potter because it dropped dead. It's onus. So what about ein ritzoni shepiktoni b'yad acher? What about shomer shemos the shomer? Why is that okay? So again, starting over, Yosef Rabbi Ami v'karmel la la'ashmaita eis v'Rabbi bar Mamel l'Rabbi asoicher parah mechaveru, that if Reuven rents a cow from Shimon, v'shila la'acher, and then lends it to Levi, v'meisa kedarka, and it just dropped dead. Yishova asocher shemeisa kedarko. So Reuven swears to Shimon that it died normally. V'ashoyel mishalim l'socher, and Levi, the borrower, pays Reuven, the renter, but Reuven doesn't have to pay anything to Shimon. Ve'im isa, now if what you are saying is correct, that shomer shemasu the shomer is chayav, le'malei, let Shimon say to Reuven, hey Reuven, what are you doing? Why'd you give it to Levi? Ein ritzoni shepiktoni b'yad acher. I have no interest in my cow being with Levi. So Amarle, so Rami answers, Achav Ma'askinon, here what are we talking about? Bishenosnu lo abai lemeshus lahashil. The Shimon had given specific permission to Ruvain to lend it to Levi. That's why it was allowed. If that's the case, the well, if Shimon had given explicit permission to Ruvain to lend it to Levi, well, I think we're about to get rid of this answer, but then it should be considered like Shimon is lending it directly to Levi, and let Levi pay Shimon directly. Da'amulei ledaitcha zo. No, what happened was that Shimon said to Ruvain, I'm renting my cow to you, and do with it what you want. If you want to rent it to somebody, it's completely up to you what you do with the cow during the time of your rental. Okay, so therefore Ruvain was allowed to lend it to Levi, but it wasn't considered like Shimon's lending it to Levi. It was considered like Ruvain's lending it to Levi. Okay, fine. Okay, but in general, we would say, as so long as there's no explicit permission, we would say that Shomer Shemaso the Shomer is a problem because of Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni B'Aracher. Most of Rami Bar Chome asks Akasha, Mafkin Motes Eitzel Chavero Shimon deposits money with Ruvain, Tzoron B'Vshil Nachorov, and Ruvain took him and bundled him up in a cloth and threw it behind his back. Or he gave the money to his minor children, his children who are young, and locked the door there, not in a particularly responsible way. Chayiv. So Shimon is chayiv. No, Reuven is chayiv. He didn't properly watch the money that he was entrusted with. Time of the Ketanim. Well, that implies that the issue was that he gave it to his kids who were ketanim. Hagadolim potter, but if they were adults, then Ruvain would have been potter. But what about Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni B'Aracher? Amai namely Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni B'Aracher. Can't Shimon say to Ruvain, what are you doing? Giving the money to your adult kids. Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni B'Aracher. So why are we saying that he's potter if he gives it to the adult kids? Amarava kol amafkid. Well, because the assumption is that anybody, so meaning Shimon in this case, when he deposited the money with Ruvain, the assumption is that Ruvain's going to watch it, but also anybody in his family, right? Maybe his wife is going to be watching it. Maybe his adult children are going to be watching it. Minor children is a different story because they would be, because that's irresponsible. But anybody in the family, right? He's basically Shimon's depositing it with Ruvain's household. And that is why it's okay if Ruvain's adult sons watch it. But in general, though, if he gave it to somebody else, he outsourced it to watch, well then, one second. Shimon would have to be on board with that. And if he's not, so then Ruvain would be chayv. So that's ishto vanavu mafkid. Amin Aidoy, then Aidoy and say, Dekanami, you can also infer this. Dekatani, Oshemisaran livno uvito akatanim. It doesn't say that he just gave it to any minors, specifically his sons and daughters that are minors, implying that his sons and daughters that are adults would be okay, but adults in general would not be okay. Right? Livno uvito akatanim chayv, ha livno levito hagdolim potter, michlal, which implies that la'acherim loshna gdolim loshna katanim chayv. But to other people, it would not be allowed. Whether they're adults, whether they're minors, it would not be allowed. Either way, it's only allowed if it's your children who are adults. The imkain, because if the issue was simply that they were minors, lisnei ketanim stama, shmamina, then you should just say ketanim, not specifically his children who are ketanim. So therefore, the fact that it does say his children, it's his children who are ketanim that are an issue, but his children who are adults would be okay, but that's where it ends. You can't give it to just random people, other people to watch, because that would be shomer shemos. So the shomer, according to Abai, the issue with that would be en utoni shepiktoni yarach. And now we're going to see the opinion of Rava. Rava says Rava Yelchsa the halacha is shomer shemos the shomer chayiv. The halacha is like Rav Yochanan that a shomer who gives to another shomer is chayiv. Lo miboya shomer socher shemoser the shomer chinam. Now, obviously, when we say that shomer shemoser the shomer is chayiv, we're talking about a shomer, right? It was certainly in a scenario where Shomer Sacher is transferring into Shomer Chinam, the Shmir also, that he's downgrading the guard, the custodianship. Certainly that's a problem. But even a Shomer Chinam who gives it to a Shomer Sacher, who's upgrading the custodianship, still chayev my time outcome. So now it says Rava, at mehemnes li b'shvuah ha'eich lo mehemnes li b'shvuah. So Rava gives a different answer, which is because Shimon says to Reuven, look, Reuven, should anything happen and you swear to me, I trust you to swear. I do not trust Levi to swear. Levi swears that the thing dropped dead, makes no difference to me. I don't trust him. You, I trust him, I don't trust. So Abaye explains that the problem with Shomer, Shemasu the Shomer is Ein Ritzoni Shepikdon Bi'aracher. Shimon just simply says, I just don't want Levi to have it. Nothing to do with trusting him or whatever, I just don't want him to have it. If something happened to it and he swore, okay, maybe we would trust him, whatever it is. It's going to come up later. Right, but it's not according to Abaye, Ein Ritzoni Shepikdon Bi'aracher isn't a trust thing, and trusting, is trustworthiness to swear. According to Rava, it's totally a trustworthiness to swear thing, which is that, look, Shimon says to Reuven, should anything happen and you swear to me, I trust you to swear. Should anything happen and Levi swears to me, I don't trust Levi to swear. So therefore you can't go and be giving it to Levi. Itmar, it was stated. Itmar, it was stated. Alright. Fine. Pasha ba v'yotzos la'agam u'meisa kedarka. Oh. So it's a scenario, or seemingly a scenario of tchilasu b'pshia v'sofa ba'ones, that he was negligent and the animal got out and went out to the rushes down by the riverside, which is a dangerous area. It's irresponsible because it can get stolen. It can get hunted by wolves, or who knows. So Shimon deposited his animal by Reuven. Reuven was irresponsible, and the animal is rolling in the rushes down by the riverside. Now, that's irresponsible because, as I said, it can get stolen, it can get killed, hunted. But that's not what happened. You know what happened? It dropped dead. That's what happened. Dropped dead is onus. So the question is, do we say, well, it dropped dead? If it dropped dead, Reuven's potter. Or do we say, yeah, but he was irresponsible. It was pshia. He let him go to the rushes down by the riverside. It's dangerous. Shouldn't have been allowed to go there. Therefore, he's chayiv. So we can see Machlokes, Rava, and Abaye. So Itmar, I'm reading that again. Pasha ba v'yotzos la'agam v'meisa kedarka. So if Reuven was irresponsible and the animal got out and went to the rushes down by the riverside, but then umeisa kedarka, it died, but not because it got stolen or hunted. It just Pasha died. Abaye mishme de Rabba Amar Chayev. So Abaye says in the name of Rabba that he's Chayev. Reuven is Chayev. Rav mishme de Rabba Amar Potter. Rav, quoting Rabba, however, says no, he's Potter. Reuven is Potter. He's ultimately dropped dead, and he's Potter for dropping dead. Abaye mishme de Rabba Amar Chayev. So Abaye says in the name of Rabba that Reuven is Chayev. Kol dayana dilo dayin kihai. Dina lav dayanahu, so much so that any judge who does not judge in accordance with me, that Reuven would be chayiv in this case. Well, any judge who does not judge like me is not a judge. So obviously, if one's opinion is that tchilasu b'pshia v'sof bonis is chayiv, well then obviously that's the scenario. He's chayiv. But even if you would say that tchilasu b'pshia v'sofa ba'ones is potter, but in this case you would be chayiv by time outcome tamin havla da agma katzla, because we're going to say that it's the bad air by the swampy, marshy areas is what killed the animal. Therefore, Ruvain is chayav. Rav Mishmei de Rabba Amar Potter. Rava, the name Rabba, says Taka Potter called Dayana Delo Doin Ki Dina Lab Dayanahu, and any judge who does not judge like this to say that he's that Reuven is Potter. If you don't judge like that, then you are not actually a judge. Potter. Obviously, if you say Tchilasu b'Pshia v'Sof ba'Onis is Potter, de Potter, then you'd be Potter. Even if you say Tchilasu b'Pshia v'Sof ba'Onis is Chayav, Hacha Potter. In this scenario, you'd be Potter. My time outcome. Darmina malachamuves mali ocha mali osum. When it's time to go, it's time to go. That if the animal Pasha dropped dead, well, then it was going to drop dead wherever it was. And therefore, Reuven is Potter. Umode Abaye who says Chayav, however, admits the Hadra Levei Marav Amesa de Potter, that if it got out and went to the rushes down by the riverside, but then returned back to the owner and then dropped dead, then returned to Reuven and dropped dead. Reuven is Potter. My time I'll come to a Hadrila. V'leka lememar havla dagmu katla, because well, it already returned back to Reuven and then dropped dead, so it's no longer the fault of the bad air of the rushes down by the riverside. Umodi Rava, and Rava admits Kolecha the igniva ganif ba'agam, that if the animal would have gotten stolen by the rushes down by the riverside, umesekidarka be ganif, and then died a natural death in the possession of the ganif, the chayev. Rava would say in that case that he's taka chayev. My time I'll come the shavka malachamuves, because even if the malachamuves would have left the animal alone, well, still, but basically the ganova have a kaima. It was stolen. It was in the house of a ganif. So Reuven would be chayev in that case for being negligent. Now that it dies, he doesn't all of a sudden get off the hook. So if it got stolen and then dropped dead by the ganif, so then Rava would agree that in that case he would be chayev. Omar le Abai the Rava says Abai to Rava Ledidach, according to you, the Omar Malachamuves Maliocha Maliosam. According to you, Rava, who says, look, Reuven is potter because the animal dropped dead. Who cares if the animal would drop dead in Reuven's house or if it dropped dead in the rushes down by the riverside? It makes no difference, therefore he's potter. But Abai asks Rava, hey Rava, Reb Abba Bar Mamel asked the kasha to Reb Ami earlier, that Reb Ami was saying over the sugya that Shomer Shemaser the Shomer is chayav. And Reb Abba Bar Mamel asked, but what about our Mishnah, where Reuven's renting Shimon's cow and then lends it to Levi? And Reb Ami didn't, right? And then it drops dead, and we say that Reuven is potter. What about Shomer Shemaser the Shomer? So why didn't Reb Ami just answer, well, the reason why Reuven is potter is because the animal dropped dead. Because the animal dropped dead. And if the Malach HaMavis is going to come, the Malach HaMavis is going to come. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter if it's in my house or if it's in Levi's house. But instead, Reb Ami had to answer, we're talking about where Shimon gave him permission. Not as good of an answer. How do we know if he gave him permission or not? We have to say, he gave him permission. It's not an amazing answer. It would have been a better answer to say that Reuven is potter because the animal Pasha dropped dead, and if it's time to drop dead, it's time to drop dead. It doesn't matter whose possession it's in. So again, Amalei Abai the Rava Abai says to Rava Ledidach, according to you, the Amrit Malachamuvis Maliocha Maliosam, they say that when it's time to go, it's time to go. Well, hi the Osuve, the Osve, Reb Abba Bar Mamel, Reb Ami, the Kasha that Reb Abba Bar Mamel asked Reb Ami from our Mishnah, Vishanile, and Reb Ami was forced to answer, Bishanosnu lo Baile Meshus, Lahasha Allah was talking about where Shimon told Reuven he's allowed to lend it out. V'leimale, why doesn't Reb Ami give a better answer? Malachamovis mali ocho mali osam. The reason why Reuven is potter is because the animal dropped dead, and it was going to drop dead wherever it was, whether it was in Levi's house, whether it was in Reuven's house. So listen to Rava's answer to Abaye. Remember, I pointed out earlier that there's two ways to understand why Shomer Shemas or the Shomer is a problem. There's the Abaye way to understand, which is Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni Biad Acher, but there's the Rava way to understand, which is that Shimon simply doesn't trust anybody other than Reuven to swear. That if Reuven would swear that it dropped dead, he would believe Reuven. He doesn't believe Levi to swear that it dropped dead. So Rava points out to Abaye, look, you're asking this, this question is only a question according to you, because you say that it's about Ein Ritzoni Shepikdoni Biad Acher. According to me, my whole point is that the reason why Reuven can't give it to Levi is because Shimon doesn't trust Levi to swear that it died. So Abaye, for you to suggest to me that if what I'm saying is true, that if it's time to die, it's time to die, therefore Reuven should be potter, that's exactly, that's kind of the whole point of why Shomer Shemas the Shomer is a problem, right? Meaning, Reb Abba Mam was asking Reb Ami, if you say that Shomer Shemas the Shomer is a problem, well then how do you explain our Mishnah where Shimon rented it to Reuven and Reuven lent it to Levi, and we're saying that Reuven is potter? Abaye, you're suggesting, well, why don't they just say that Reuven is potter because if it was going to drop dead, it was going to drop dead? But that wouldn't be a good answer because Shimon would just say to meaning if Reuven came to Shimon and said, look, I'm potter because it just dropped dead. How do you know it dropped dead? Well, Levi swore that it dropped dead. The whole point is I don't trust Levi to swear that it dropped dead. That is why you had to, right. So that's why you have to answer with that, he had given him permission. Right, so Rava says to Abaye, look, Abaye, that question that you're asking me of why don't you just say that it dropped dead is a question according to you, because according to you, Abaye, the reason why Shimon doesn't want Reuven giving to Levi is because I just don't want Levi to have it. But if it dropped dead, sure, that's a good point. If it dropped dead, right, shouldn't it be okay to just drop dead? But according to me, the whole point is that Shimon doesn't trust Levi to swear that it dropped dead. So therefore, that isn't a good answer to say, well, it's talking about where it dropped dead. Shimon doesn't trust Levi that it dropped dead. Therefore, he has to answer that Shimon gave permission to Reuven to give it to Levi. So, so where am I? Where am I? So, okay. So Amarle, so Rava says to Abaye, according to you, that the only problem with Reuven giving the cow to Levi is simply that Shimon doesn't want Levi to have it. So yeah, it's a good question. Why did Reb Ami have to say that it's talking about where Shimon gave permission to Reuven to give it to Levi? Why can't Reuven just say to Shimon, look, it dropped dead. If it's going to drop dead, it's going to drop dead. That's a good question. But Ladidi, according to me, the Amina that I'm saying, that Shimon says to Reuven, look, I trust you, I don't trust Levi. Well then, obviously that's not going to be a good suggestion, because the whole point is that Shimon doesn't trust Levi to say that it died regularly. Moshe Rami Bar Choma asked Akasha on Abaye, Hela l'roshe tzukin v'nafla ein ze ones. Right, that Abaye had said that if the animal drops dead in the rushes down by the riverside, Reuven is chayv because the air was problematic. But we have a brayso that says Hela l'roshe tzukin, that if Reuven took the animal up to like the sharp peaks of a mountain, v'nafla, and the animal fell down and died, ein ze ones, that's not ones. V'chayev, and Reuven would be chayev. But if it would die a natural death there, Hari's onis, it would be considered onis who potter ve'amai. According to Abai, why should it be potter? Le'malei avir dehar kotla, that it's the air of the mountain that killed the animal. Inami, alternatively, uvtz dehar kotla, or it got exhausted at the top of the mountain, and that's why it died. Well, you can answer, because Reuven had brought the cow up there for good grazing, so that's why it was there. It was allowed to be there. It was a good reason to be there. If that's the case, naflanami, well then even if it falls, shouldn't Reuven be potter? Shayla l'tokva lo tokva. Well, if it fell, then Reuven's chai because he should have held on to it better, stronger. If that's the case, ema reisha. Then I'll say the reisha. Also the rosh etzukim v'nafla reza ones, that if it fell down, then it's ones. But he baile lemitkafa. Shouldn't he have held on to it better? Also takavtov yoda. Well, that's the reason why it's considered ones, is because the animal was kind of being very difficult and overpowering him, and then it fell down. That's why he's potter in that case. Omer Rabbi Yossi ketzad hala oses chore b'paraso v'chulei. Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah, I don't understand how Shimon could be doing business with Reuven, how Reuven could be doing business with Shimon's cow. Right? Reuven rented Shimon's cow, and now he's lending it to Levi. The cow dies. Reuven's potter, but Levi now has to pay Reuven. What's going on here? Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yossi. Says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Amar lei Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda le Rav Yehuda. Says Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda to Rav Yehuda. Amar lan mishmei de Shmuel, that you said to us in the name of Shmuel. Chalakay Rabbi Yossi av barishona. The Rabbi Yossi also argued not just in this Mishnah, but also the first Mishnah of the parak, where we said that if Shimon deposited his animal with Reuven and then it got stolen and Reuven opted to pay Shimon, then Reuven would be able to get the kefel and the daled vehei. So Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says to Rav Yehuda that he had said in the name of Shmuel, interesting names here, that Rabbi Yossi even argues in the first Mishnah. Halacha k'moso ein halacha k'moso. Would the halacha be like Rabbi Yossi there as well? Amalei, Rav Yehuda says Cholokai Rabbi Yossi aparishona v'halacha k'moso aparishona. That yes, it's true. Rabbi Yossi argued even on the first Mishnah, and the halacha is also like Rabbi Yossi there. Itmanayim was also stated Amar Rabbi Lazar Cholokai Rabbi Yossi aparishona v'halacha k'moso aparishona. The Rabbi Lazar also says that Rabbi Yossi argued on the first Mishnah that the halacha is like him. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Moda Aya Rabbi Yossi barishona, and Rabbi Yochanan says fakir that Rabbi Yossi Taka agreed with the first Mishnah. Shekvar Shilem, because Reuven had already paid Shimon. Shilem in, lo Shilem lo, what? So Reuven Davka has to pay Shimon for this to work? But didn't Rabbi Chiya Abba say the name of Rabbi Yochanan that he doesn't actually have to pay him, he could just say that he's going to pay him, and that's already enough. So say that Rabbi Yossi admits, agrees with the first Mishnah, with the Tanakama, the initial Mishnah, because he already said that he's going to pay. Wow, very, very interesting stuff today. There was some really important things on today's daf. First of all, we talked to Shtickle about Shavuos Bitui and Shavuos Kviras Mamon and bringing a korban chatas versus bringing a korban asham, and then we started talking about shomer shomasu l'shomer, which is an important sugya, and we saw the machlokas between Abaye and Rava about how exactly, what exactly is the problem with that. Abaye says en ritzoni shepitoni biad acher. Rava says I don't trust that that Shimon simply doesn't trust, or how about this? Shimon trusts Reuven to swear, he doesn't trust Levi to swear. And we got a little bit into some interesting stuff. That was the Aflam Avav of Mesechta BavaMetzia. Peace out.